The Galactic Council had once laughed when the issue came up. Humans, a primitive race from the edge of the Orion Arm, were just starting to make noise in the cosmos. They had learned space travel a few decades earlier, stumbled into wormhole tech by accident, and had begun sending explorers everywhere. Loud, reckless, stubborn, that was how the Council saw them. Not dangerous, not worth worrying about. So, when the debate opened on Earth's future, almost every voice was the same: enslave them. It was standard policy for species that advanced too quickly without proper authorization: put them in controlled labor worlds, strip them of their technology, harvest their strengths. Humanity, they believed, would fit neatly into the system, like all the others before them. The vote was almost unanimous. 87 Council species, all noble, ancient, and proud, clicked their voting stones in favor of subjugation. Only 2 spoke against it, minor species who barely had a say. Their warnings were brushed aside. The humans are unruly, they said. Too violent, too unpredictable. Laughter echoed in the golden halls of the Council. No one feared Earth. The fleets left a week later. Black ships darkened the skies over New York, Shanghai, Cairo, London. The people of Earth didn't surrender. They didn't even hesitate. A handful of hours after the first city was fired upon, humanity had responded. First came the missiles, old-fashioned and blunt. Then came the viral attacks, software bombs tearing through the invader systems like wildfire. Finally came something no one expected: humanity itself. They had learned more from the stars than anyone thought. Bioengineering, cybernetics, dark matter weaponry, even before the Council had noticed them, Earth had been building, preparing, fighting among themselves, sure, but always growing sharper, meaner, smarter. War was humanity's oldest teacher, and they had paid attention. When the first alien dropships landed in Detroit, they were ripped apart in minutes. In Africa, an entire platoon of Council soldiers disappeared into the jungles, never to be seen again. Tokyo's defense grid overloaded the attackers' shields with a hacking virus embedded inside a simple children's game. Moscow's winter swallowed armored beasts whole. No matter where they landed, the invaders bled. Weeks passed, months. The Council began to panic. What should have been an easy conquest turned into a nightmare. Every fleet they sent was shredded. Their best generals disappeared. Their war machines, so mighty in every other corner of the galaxy, failed against human ingenuity and rage. Then the unthinkable happened: humanity launched their own fleet. It wasn't big. It wasn't pretty. Rusted cargo freighters welded into warships. Battleships carved out of Earth's mining rigs. Old satellites repurposed into kinetic kill weapons. But they moved fast, hit harder, and, worse, didn't fight fair. They sabotaged Council fleets from the inside, hacked navigation systems mid-warp, planted viruses in diplomatic envoys. No one was safe. The Council species started seeing their own worlds burned, their own cities bombed from orbit, their own people enslaved. The Council called an emergency meeting, 1,000 voices buzzing, hissing, and growling across 1,000 worlds. They wanted answers. They wanted revenge. Above all, they wanted to understand how everything had gone so horribly wrong. But it was too late. As the Council chambers buzzed in chaos, the great doors thundered open. A single human walked in, no armor, no army behind him, just a worn jacket, heavy boots, and a gaze that cut sharper than any weapon. He dropped something at the Council's feet, a piece of wreckage, still smoldering from a downed flagship. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The human smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "You voted to enslave us," he said, voice low and clear, "now you're the ones on your knees." Nobody dared to move at first. The councillors, proud rulers of 1,000 systems, just sat there, frozen in their golden thrones. Some hissed under their breath, others reached for translators or weapons hidden in their robes. But none of them stood up, not after seeing what had happened to their fleets, their worlds, their so-called unstoppable armies. The human stepped forward, his boots echoing on the polished marble floor. His name was Colonel Marcus Hale, though out here they would soon know him by a different title, the Voice of Earth. Not a politician, not a diplomat, a soldier. Because Earth wasn't here to beg or negotiate. Earth was here to deliver judgment. You think you know power? Marcus said, his voice steady, almost casual. You think you can sit in your gilded towers, pass your little votes, and play gods over others? He raised his hand slowly and pointed at the ceiling, where a hologram flickered to life. It showed Earth's fleet, ugly and ragtag, surrounding the Council's most sacred strongholds. Ships locked in orbit around home worlds that hadn't seen war in 1,000 years. Weapons primed. You thought you could enslave us, Marcus continued, pacing now, forcing the counselors to turn and follow him like scolded children. You saw what you wanted to see, primitive savages, easy to break. You never thought what would happen if we fought back, if we decided you were the threat. One of the counselors, a lizard-like creature with jeweled scales, finally found his courage. This is a violation of. Marcus shot him a look that froze the words in his throat. Violation? Marcus barked a laugh. You voted to violate an entire planet, an entire people. You wanted slaves, and now you want to talk about rules. He shook his head, disgusted. No, you don't get to hide behind your laws now. You made your choice. A few of the counselors whispered among themselves, trying to plan, to scheme the way they always had. But Marcus could see it in their eyes, the fear. Real, naked fear. It was new to them, they weren't used to feeling weak. But humanity had a way of dragging even gods down into the dirt. You're not leaving this room until you understand something, Marcus said. He pulled a small device from his jacket, a crude black cube no bigger than his fist. When he activated it, the walls around them changed. Not just the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything. The counselors found themselves standing in a field of scorched earth. Around them rose the wreckage of their own ships. Burning bodies lay scattered, council soldiers, broken and bloodied. Their high-tech armor was shattered. This is what you created, Marcus said softly. This is your legacy. He stepped closer to the lizard counselor who had dared to speak. You have two choices, kneel and surrender every one of your empires to human governance, or keep fighting and we'll wipe you out, all of you, species by species, planet by planet, until only ghosts are left to whisper about the day you tried to break Earth. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Finally, the eldest counselor, a towering being whose body shimmered like molten gold, rose from his throne. Slowly, stiffly, he bent one knee. Then the other. And with that, the rest followed. Some out of fear, some out of desperation, a few maybe out of something close to respect, but they all knelt. Every last one of them. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stared down at them, the proud rulers of the galaxy now bowing before the very species they once thought to enslave. Remember this moment, Marcus said, because it's the last mercy you'll ever get from us. Above them, the Earth fleet began to broadcast a message to every corner of the galaxy: the age of the Council is over, the age of humanity has begun. The message spread faster than light itself. Every colony, every council world, every backwater trading post received the transmission. Some didn't believe it at first. They thought it was human propaganda, a clever trick. But the pictures that followed, the great council chambers desecrated, their proud leaders on their knees, couldn't be faked. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. Old alliances crumbled overnight. Trade networks collapsed. Slave markets burned. Species who had once bowed to council law found themselves free but terrified. Without the council, who would protect them? Who would rule them? The answer came 3 days later, when the first Earth fleet arrived at the council's capital world, Varix Prime. Marcus Hale led them himself, standing at the helm of a battered human warship named Deliverance. It was barely space-worthy by Council standards, a rusted beast of welded steel, yet it carved a path through the void like a predator scenting blood. Marcus didn't bring peace. He brought a new order. The humans disarmed the planetary security forces first. Then they landed ground teams, soldiers, engineers, scientists, and began dismantling the Council's old systems. The golden statues of Council heroes were pulled down. The Hall of Species, a museum celebrating the Council's civilized rule, was converted into a prison. Every councillor who had voted for Earth's enslavement was marched through the streets in chains. The footage went viral, billions cheered, billions wept, billions seethed. Not everyone loved their new human rulers. Some tried to resist. On Dural 6, an aristocratic rebellion rose up, funded by old council families. They thought the humans would hesitate, that they'd negotiate, that they'd respect the so-called nobility of the galaxy. They were wrong. Marcus deployed a single unit of Earth's shock marines, men and women who had cut their teeth in the worst wars Earth had ever known. They didn't ask questions. They didn't take prisoners. Within 72 hours, Doralix was nothing but smoking ruins. Every rebel leader was executed. Every city that resisted was flattened. Those who surrendered were spared, barely. The message was clear, you either submit or you burn. Marcus stood atop the ruins of Doral's capital, looking out over the devastation with cold eyes. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel sorrow. He felt necessity. We can't afford weakness, he told his second-in-command, Captain Raza Malik. Not now. Not ever. Malik nodded grimly. They're scared of us. That's good. They'll think twice before crossing us. Marcus stared at the burning horizon. Fear only lasts so long. We need something stronger. What then? Malik pressed. Marcus didn't answer right away. He thought about the Council's centuries of rule, about the lies they told to keep themselves in power, about the wars they started just to thin out populations, about the billions they had enslaved, tortured, erased without a second thought. No, humanity wouldn't be that. But they wouldn't be soft, either. We build an empire, Marcus said finally. A real one where no species can enslave another, one where everyone knows their place, one where humanity leads forever. And so it began. Earth's armies spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They didn't just conquer, they rebuilt. They rewrote laws, established new governments loyal to humanity. Every planet, every station, every fleet had a human overseer. Resistance was crushed ruthlessly, cooperation was rewarded with food, medicine, and technology that most species had never dreamed of having access to. It wasn't kindness, it was control. Soon, human children learned about new star systems the way they once learned about continents. Human flags flew on alien worlds. Human words became the language of trade, law, and diplomacy. The old council maps, once covered in colorful patches of alien empires, turned gray, the color of Earth's new dominion. But deep in the shadows of forgotten systems, old grudges festered. Seeds of rebellion took root. And Marcus knew it. He stood once again before the ruins of Varix Prime's great council hall, the banners of Earth snapping in the bitter wind. We didn't ask for this war, he whispered to himself. But we're damn sure going to finish it. Above him, the first human-built dreadnoughts, colossal warships the size of cities, drifted into orbit. Earth was no longer a backwater planet, it was the beating heart of a new empire, and it was just getting started. In the wake of Marcus Hale's final stand, a heavy silence settled over Earth and the surrounding stars. The rebel banners fluttered on the shattered spires of Fortress 1, but the massacre that followed left no triumphant cheers, only the hollow echo of what had been lost. Across the battered plaza, survivors of both sides lay among the rubble. Human defenders, ragged and bloodied, knelt beside wounded rebel soldiers, offering water and medical packs scavenged from fallen supply crates. Neither victory nor defeat felt clean, both sides recognized, in that grim stillness, the price of unbridled power. 3 days later, on the roof of the Provisional Command Center in New Chicago, Captain Raza Malik addressed the galaxy. He spoke not as conqueror, but as a steward of what remained. His shoulders still bore the stain of ash and smoke, and his voice was worn, but resolute. We have paid too dear for vengeance. We have learned that empires built on fear must endure only as long as they remember humility and mercy. Let Marcus Hale's final act remind us all, no one is above the cost of war. Malik then extended an olive branch to the former rebel coalition. Under guarded truce, representatives from key sectors, human and alien, gathered aboard the newly christened ship Concordia. There, in the hushed glow of diplomatic chambers, they drew the charter of the Outer Verge, an accord that would replace the shattered council and the fallen empire alike. Key tenets of the charter included equal representation. Every species, no matter its size or strength, would hold one vote in decisions affecting member worlds. Non-aggression pact. No participating world would initiate hostilities, disputes would be settled through arbitration. Shared defense. A joint defense force, drawn proportionally from member species, would guard against external threats, reporting to a collective council. Technology exchange. Advances in medicine, engineering, and environmental restoration would be freely shared, to heal war's scars and foster mutual prosperity. It was, in many ways, a humble document, born from necessity rather than idealism. Yet even its imperfect language carried a promise, that the children of Earth, and the orphans of every alien homeworld, could inherit a future not predicated on domination. As the Concordia set its course for Varix Prime, where the charter would be ratified, Captain Malik walked the decks alone. He carried with him a small, smoldering fragment of Deliverance's hull, the same scorched wreckage Marcus had used in the council chambers. He placed it within a transparent case at the center of the ship's promenade. Below it, an inscription read, "He broke the knee, may we never break the spirit." In the weeks that followed, tentative peace took root. Trade routes reopened under the new Accord's flag. Scientists from dozens of worlds converged in joint research stations, reviving war-torn ecosystems and sharing cures for diseases that had spread like wildfire during the conflict. Cultural exchanges blossomed, music, art, and stories poured through once closed systems. And yet, far from the shining halls of the Concordia, small pockets of discontent lingered. On backwater mining colonies, disillusioned veterans whispered of lost glories, in hidden enclaves, zealots bewailed the Accord's compromises. But the shock of seeing Earth, once backwater, now galaxy's heart, kneel before its own ideals tempered even the fiercest dissent. Most found, as Malik had declared, that humility could be its own strength. By the time the charter was ratified on Varix Prime, a new council had convened, 50% human, 50% alien, each member sworn to uphold the hard-won peace. In her opening address, High Chancellor Amina Trask, a former rebel leader from Turin 5, remarked, "We have seen the abyss of our darkest impulses. Let this council be a lantern in that darkness, guiding not by the threat of fire, but by the promise of mutual respect." Below the vaulted dome where Marcus once walked as conqueror, his name was spoken not with reverence for power, but with gratitude for the lesson he imposed. In that echoing chamber, the legacy of war became the foundation for a new order, one born not of chains and flames, but of a common vow, never again to bend the knee in fear, nor to demand the surrender of any soul. And so, from the ashes of empire and rebellion, the galaxy found a fragile renewal. The age of conquest had ended, in its place rose the age of concord. Whether it would endure would depend, as it always does, on the choices of those who claim its promise. Years passed, and the Concord flourished under its new principles. Starliners laden with traders and scholars plied ancient warp lanes, their hulls painted with the twin insignia of Earth and alien sigils. Children of mixed heritage, human mothers and Zaxari fathers, Jaxari mothers and Terran fathers, played under the cerulean domes of Meloria Prime, their laughter a testament to lives no longer fractured by fear. Yet peace, like any living thing, proved fragile. In the outer reaches beyond the Charter's protection, the former Sons of Terror regrouped. Scattered cells had vanished during the truce, some swallowed by the void, others hiding in uncharted nebulae. Their leader, the young Jaxery woman whose defiant glare had once pierced a camera lens, re-emerged as something darker, not a martyr of freedom, but an ideologue convinced that humanity's rise had tainted every world it touched. Her new movement called themselves the Purists, dedicated to cleansing the galaxy of what they termed human corruption. They operated from hidden asteroid fortresses, launching raids on remote outposts where council oversight had yet to solidify. Their slogans, etched in blood, warned, "No compromise with invaders." Captain Raza Malik, now Grand Marshal of the Joint Defense Fleet, received the first reports as fragmented transmissions, spice freighters demolished in transit, medical convoys ambushed under guise of human aid, entire survey crews met with booby-trapped ruins. Each atrocity was executed with precision, leaving no survivors to tell the tale. Malik convened an urgent session aboard the Concordia's successor, the Unity-class flagship Resolution. Twice the size of Deliverance, and far more refined, Resolution's playlists now included music from half a dozen species. Yet in its war room, screens flickered with images of burning hulls and battered escape pods. The Purists gained strength, Admiral Ortega reported, voice tight. They recruit from disillusioned colonists who still resent Earth's dominion, those who never felt the benefit of Concord's aid. Malik nodded, his features drawn. We underestimated the lingering hatred, he admitted. Sending peacekeepers without winning hearts was a mistake. High Chancellor Amina Trask, wearing the twin chain of office now, leaned forward. We must remember, force alone cannot stamp out an ideology. We need to show that Concord's promise has real value, not just to core worlds but to the forgotten fringes. Her gaze swept the room. Propose a mission, a joint humanitarian expedition to the outer verge. Engineers, doctors, security forces, let them see cooperation in action. If we can rebuild one abandoned colony, broadcast that success widely, we shatter the Purists' narrative. Malik met her eyes. Understood, Chancellor. I'll assemble the task force. On the desolate moon of Heirloom 3, half sunken beneath orange dunes, Concord's task force arrived. They found collapsed domes, rusted machinery, and silent streets. Scavenger gangs, left unchecked after the Council's fall, had scavenged every usable scrap of technology. The few surviving colonists, huddled in makeshift tunnels, eyed the newcomers with wary suspicion. Dr. Liera Kess, a Terran xenobiologist, knelt beside a dying terraformer node. If we can reroute power from the orbital solar collectors, we might get the atmosphere scrubbers online again, she told Captain Malik, who crouched beside her in his field uniform. Malik watched as engineers pried panels off wrecked bots and repurposed reactor cores. Soldiers guarded perimeter posts, but offered water rations and triage to every colonist who emerged. At twilight, the task force gathered under the moon's pale sky. A makeshift kitchen, staffed by interspecies volunteers, served steaming bowls of stew. Laughter, cautious but genuine, rose from tables where humans, Jaxery, and minor species shared rations. A veteran medic, an Andari woman named Seelan Poesticated, raised her voice. When we first arrived, you hid from us. Now you're teaching us your farming methods. That's proof enough that Concord can help. The gathered colonists murmured agreement. Children ran between tables, chasing a small mechanical toy gifted by Dr. Kess. In that moment, for the first time since the Charter's signing, the Concord's promise felt more than a document, it felt alive. News of Heirloom 3's revival spread faster than any purist broadcast. Holographic feeds showed domes re-inflating, scrubbers humming back to life, farms sprouting verdant green across dusty plains. Colonists told of new clinics, shared schools, and a security force pledged to defend them, not subjugate them. Back on Resolution, Malik and Trask watched the reports together. This will hurt them, he said, referring to the purists. They rely on fear and resentment. When hope takes root, their ideology finds no soil. Trask offered a rare, tired smile. Hope is the most dangerous weapon, and the most enduring. As Concord's fleets dispatched further aid missions, the purists' raids grew desperate, and increasingly isolated. Without popular support, their strongholds became targets for precision strikes. Concord's joint defense ships, now commanded by officers of every species, coordinated to cut supply lines, rescue captives, and dismantle asteroid fortresses one by one. By the time the purists' leader, once a symbol of rebellion, was captured on Nelita Station, her followers numbered in the hundreds, not thousands. At her trial before the new council, she refused to plead for mercy. "You bend your knee to peace," she spat. "One day, you'll learn that the spirit can never be broken." High Chancellor Trask responded quietly, "Then let this be our answer," she said, and pressed a button on her dais. Behind her, the same hologram once used by Marcus Hale flickered to life, this time showing the Concord's fleets delivering food, medicine, and education to a dozen worlds. Even unbroken spirits can find purpose in something greater than hate. Decades later, the Charter of the Outer Verge remained the foundation of an interstellar civilization unlike any before it. Concord's colors adorned starports, its badge graced the uniforms of peacekeepers and teachers alike. Children on distant colonies learned of Marcus Hale's stand, not as a call to conquer, but as a cautionary tale of power's cost. And though the ghosts of empires past whispered in concealed shadows, the galaxy remembered Heirloom 3, the little moon where cooperation rekindled hope. In that choice, all worlds discovered that true strength lies not in bent knees or clenched fists, but in the willingness to lift one another toward a shared tomorrow. Decades of uneasy peace passed. Under the Charter's guidance, billions of lives were rebuilt, cities rose on scorched worlds, starliners hummed between orbital docks, and the Concorde's azure banner flew above every embassy. Yet even in this new age of cooperation, the scars of war ran deep. On Varix Prime, the Council's capital, Councillor Gyron of the Ajari Consortium presided over a forum to celebrate the Charter's 30th anniversary. He spoke of unity's triumph, but even his eloquence could not fully mask the undercurrent of distrust that lingered. Many delegates still whispered of old grievances, human foremen who'd clung too long to power, council species who'd once bowed too readily. The applause felt polite, not heartfelt. Meanwhile, deep in the nebula-shrouded outer verge, surveys by joint research teams uncovered an unsettling anomaly. A dormant hyperspace rift, its coordinates etched long ago in council star charts, had begun to pulse with energy. Small unmanned probes sent to investigate disappeared without a trace. Sensor logs recorded impossible readings, fluctuations in the fabric of space, ripples of radiation that danced like laughter. When the council convened an emergency session, alarmed voices clamored for immediate quarantine. "We cannot risk another blind conquest," warned Councillor Trask, now elder stateswoman, her chain of office weathered but gleaming. "We must approach this with humility and care." Others, still bearing hard memories of conflict, argued that any unknown power posed an existential threat, and that Earth's fleets should mobilize in force. Captain Raza Malik, his hair grayed but his bearing as unyielding as ever, addressed the assembly. "In our first war, we crushed what we did not understand," he said quietly, "and we paid dearly. If this rift truly harbors a new intelligence or force, then I do not wish to antagonize it. But neither can we ignore the warning signs." He proposed a compromise, a small, mixed-species expedition, scientists, diplomats, and light security escort, to journey beyond the rift, gather data, and, if possible, establish contact. Reluctantly, the council agreed. A month later, the expedition, aboard the sleek research vessel Aurora's Hope, arrived at the rift's edge. Its crew included human xenophysicist Dr. Eliza Moreno, Jaxari linguist Councillor Snar, and Ajari engineer Virantez. As they drifted beside the swirling portal of violet and silver, Moreno's instruments recorded surges of tachyonic pulses. Tez watched his readouts with growing unease. This isn't a natural phenomenon, he murmured. It's patterned. Intentional. Then, without warning, a voice echoed through the comms, soft, musical, layered with harmonics no species had ever heard. Greetings, it intoned in perfect common speech. We have watched the galaxy's children struggle. We offer guidance. Come forward. Shock rippled through the crew. Snar's hand hovered above the translation pad. They speak our language, she whispered. We must respond with peace. Over the following days, the Aurora's Hope exchanged cautious messages with the Rift Dwellers, an ancient collective calling themselves the Harmonic Convergence. They claimed to be custodians of galactic stability, intervening whenever sentient civilizations neared the brink of self-destruction. They offered to share technology capable of healing war-torn planets, to dispense societal algorithms that could predict and prevent conflict before it erupted. Back on Varix Prime, the news ignited fierce debate. Some hailed the Convergence as saviors, a chance to heal every scar of the last century in a single generation. Others remembered Marcus Hale's warning, that power unexamined would corrupt, no matter how benevolent its source. Counselor Moreno, no relation to Dr. Eliza Moreno, spoke passionately, we have carried the weight of war for 30 years so that we would never again surrender our fate to another's mercy. If we accept the Convergence's gift without question, we risk trading one tyranny for another, this time cloaked in harmony. In the end, the Council voted to allow only limited cooperation. The Harmonic Convergence could assist with planetary restoration projects, but any technology affecting social governance would remain under joint human-alien oversight. The Convergence accepted these terms with serene grace, cautioning only that future refusal might be interpreted as hostility. As the first Convergence terraforming satellites activated above Heirloom 3, replenishing its oceans and healing its atmosphere, a cautious optimism spread. For the first time, the Concord seemed to stand on firmer ground, guided not solely by the lessons of violence but by a nascent trust in dialogue itself. But in the quiet corridors of the old council halls, shadows lengthened. Some council species, alien and human alike, began to meet in secret, uneasy about external influence, no matter how benevolent. They whispered of Marcus Hale's ghost, that indomitable soldier who had bent the proudest knee and then refused to let humanity be bowed again. They asked themselves, had the galaxy's children learned humility, or merely learned a new master? Only time would tell. Yet as the mottled sea breezes stirred the curtains of the council chamber and the Concord's twin stars rose on the horizon, a single truth endured, the galaxy's fate would never again be decided by force alone, but by the fragile, tumultuous art of choosing whom to trust, and when to stand firm.